This week on the corner, let's talk about bed leveling next. Hey everyone, welcome back to my corner. I'm Jeff. One of the most important things in 3D printing is to have a level bed in which to print on. It's going to eliminate a lot of problems, like prints not sticking to the bed would be a really popular one. If your bed is really unlevel, you're going to have some layer inconsistencies at one point in time. You'll run into some issues that you can solve simply by having a good level base to build on. Now, when we say level the bed, it's not technically throwing a level on your bed to make sure it is level. What leveling our bed means is if this is your build surface and this is your nozzle or your hot end, what leveling the bed means is that you want to be the same distance away from the surface that you're printing on. That's what leveling your bed means. The problem is you're never ever going to have a perfectly level build plate, or there's metal, there's magnetic stickers, there's glass, but usually the build plates are all a little, you'll never find, I've never found in my experience a perfectly level one to start off. There's always going to be something. So you're going to get as close as you can to leveling the bed. The tools required for this are a piece of paper. You're probably going to need one of your Allen keys because you might have to adjust a few things, but this is pretty much it. This is, wonderful piece of technology. Foolproof leveling system. It's great. So there are different ways to level your bed. I'm going to go with manual leveling on my Voxelab here, my Aquilla. We're going to go into Prusa Slicer and make our own bed leveling test. You don't have to import anything, you don't have to download anything, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's get started with the leveling, okay? So before we print on our surface, before we even start this, we want to make sure our surface is clean. So what I use is isopropyl alcohol, 99%, and a paper towel. I just wet the paper towel and clean the bed so it has a nice clean surface to stick to. What we're going to do is first we're going to turn on our printer. We're going to preheat our bed for PLA. So that should preheat us to 55, which is the temperature we'll print at. So we're going to let that go. So with some printers, you'll have to assemble your Z-axis switch, which on the Aquila is right here. You can hear that. And what will happen usually is something on the carriage will drop down and trigger the switch. So if you're having trouble getting your printer so your nozzle is close to your bed, you may have to adjust your Z switch up and down. So once the bed is preheated, you want to slide your paper under your nozzle. Now if you have bed clips, I suggest you move them from the sides to the center. So you're going to move your nozzle over your wheel. All right. And to me, the easiest way to do this is to simply adjust our wheel here. So what I'm trying to do here is get it to the point by adjusting the wheel either up or down that the paper there's slight resistance as it is sliding underneath the nozzle. the ultimate goal here is to have all four corners with the same resistance on the paper, because then you're at the same point on all four corners. So it's kind of like you'll go around once, then you go around again, and you want to get the same resistance at all 4 points and the center. Top left, and we do the same thing. So I'm currently in Prusa Slicer, and I am going to make a bed leveling test. So all we're going to do is you're going to set up how your printer is set up. So the Voxelab Aquila is basically the Ender V2. It's the exact same printer pretty much. It's a clone of it. So what I've done is I have gone into the configuration wizard. Under other vendors, I've added Creality. And I've added the Ender V2 onto my profiles on Prusa Slicer. Once I did that, I simply renamed it to a Voxelab Aquila. And I have my profile. So what we're going to do to make our own bed leveling test is simply, we're going to right click to add a shape. We're going to add a box. Now you see how our layer height is 0.2. We're going to make our Z 0.2. You're going to have to remove this lock for the scale. And we're going to go 30 by 30 millimeters. So that gives us a nice little square. We're going to make a few copies of these to place in each corner. Now, you're going to line these up so you have a partition on the side, or space on the side, I should say. In order to give yourself a decent area to level. So that's it. That's how you make a leveling test. We're going to slice that. It's going to take about 12 minutes. And then we're going to export our code. You can call it level. And we're going to go and run this. So let's look at our results. So we have our 5 squares here. Now if you look over here, that first loop that came around is very loose here, so I know that this corner is going to be too low. I need to bring this up a little bit. Now you can tell that as well as when you lift it up and you look at your print. If you see how it separates, right? It's not touched, so we're going to have to raise our little bed a little bit there on that corner. So we'll do that, and then we'll try it again. Now you see this corner here. This corner I started out too high, and then I went too low, and then I brought it back up towards here. So this is actually, I believe this one's actually a bit too low. So we will drop this sucker down a little bit here. So all I'm doing is going underneath the bed and adjusting the knobs based on what I see here. Now this top corner up here, again, we have the separation of the layers. That tells me it's too low. So we are going to take it up a little bit. And then this back one is actually pretty good. So we'll leave that back corner alone. And the center is, as you can see, it is too low. So we'll run this test again. And all we're going to do is we will adjust the knobs underneath until we get it level. So yeah, and I'm done the leveling and my squares all look pretty good. So we're ready at this point in time to start a print. Now, don't be discouraged, right? Like, if one of your sides is still too low, play around with it. But remember, each corner affects the other corners too, right? So it's a very delicate process. You don't need to get frustrated with it. It's just you're going to keep going around and around and around until you get it as close as you possibly can. Like, as I say, it's you're going to have to, you might have to do this a few times, and that's perfectly fine. This is a bit of an extreme example. Usually it might take 2-3 times, and that's really, it depends how much of a perfectionist you are. But you know, once you get a good base, then you're ready to go. Those are pretty decent there, so we're going to move on from here. Now we're ready to print. So one more thing to do, and this is purely for fun and actually for education, is we're going to do the same thing with the box. But what we're going to do this time is we are simply going to, we're going to resize this to our layer height, which is 0.2. And then we're going to go, say 30 wide by 100 long. No, actually, let's do it the opposite way. Let's do 100 here by 30. Okay, so what we have is a basically a rectangle of one layer height. We're going to drop this right above the wheel in the front corner. So what our plan is, now that we have our bed level, we're actually going to play around with our level a little bit so we can hopefully get some different looks for what it looks like when your bed is too low or your bed is too high. So we're going to slice this, we're going to export it, and we're going to print it. So this is the test I ran, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Once you have what your level looks like, which is this right here, so we'll call this 0, okay? And what I did was I just slightly adjusted with the auto bed leveling. I went up 1/10 of a millimeter to here, another 1/10 to here, and another 1/10 to here. Then I started to bring it down. Then I'm back to around 0 here. And then what I did was I actually went minus 1/10 of a millimeter, 1/20th of a millimeter, and 1/30th of a millimeter. So you can actually almost see the bed. And I did this because I actually wanted you guys to have a point of reference for if you have leveling troubles. This is good, this is too high, this is too low. But again, when you see a picture on the internet as opposed to actually doing it, by doing it by yourself, you tend to learn a bit better, and you can actually visualize the differences. Now you can do this with auto bed leveling by just adjusting your Z offset, or as I said, when I sliced it in the above the wheel like this. So all you would have to do is just adjust the wheel slightly, like 1/8 of a turn every time, and then back. So you can actually see the differences of what the cause and effect of the different variations of height do on your bottom layer. So yeah, I encourage you guys to do this. Keep this as a reference. I keep a book that I normally put all my like G codes that I've learned and leveling little tips and tricks and stuff like that. Use this kind of as your bookmark, or just tape it onto a page so you can kind of tell. You can actually have your references down too. So hope that helps. So yeah, so that's how we get our bed level. I hope that the video I presented to you had a couple of different things that other videos don't have in it. I prefer to have the visual reference like this, as I said, when I put in my book, that I know my level is what it's supposed to look like, and some troubleshooting things if it looks a little bit different. It's a good way to start out, so when you first start printing, that you're able to kind of get the feel for what it looks like if it's too high or too low. All this with the power of a single sheet of paper. Brilliant. We've gone through leveling. I do have another video about how to install auto bed leveling onto the Voxelab. You can check that video up below. But for manual bed leveling and how to sort of get there, I hope I provided you with a few little tips. I also hope I've gotten you a little bit more comfortable in using something like Prusa Slicer in order to make your own bed leveling test, as well as your nozzle height test. I guess we'll call this sucker here on the paper, right? That's probably the best name for it, but truly it's your comfort level, and everyone learns differently. You could watch 1,000 YouTube videos and not get something. You could read it in a book and pick it up right away. You might be a hands-on person where you actually need to physically see it. I hope I've given you that tool so that you can do that yourself. And you know, printing's awesome. Start printing, get yourself a level and clean bed, and you're going to make some really great stuff. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Leave me a comment below if you can add anything to this video. I'd like to hear it. Give me a thumbs up if you found this video useful. Click on the subscribe button. And I just wanted to say that actually the day I'm filming this is actually the 1-year anniversary for this channel. So I just want to thank everybody who's subscribed, everyone who's looked at the videos and stuff. Thank you so much for helping to support me in this channel and my future endeavors. I really appreciate it. So to all of you, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Peace out.